So it's been 1 year of me getting submitted. How you found BJJ?
That was a very interesting story.
Okay. Damn.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so
Okay.
welcome everyone. Today is the first episode of our podcast, and this podcast will be mainly about BJJ, and from time to time I'll be inviting guests over to talk about some different topics who I feel are more interesting.
Yeah.
And today we have with us Daniel.
Daniel.
Can you introduce yourself?
My name is Daniel Ekwazi. I'm a data scientist and a jiu-jitsu. Yeah, I've been training jiu-jitsu for roughly over 2 years now, just over 2 years, and I've been a data scientist for the better part of 5 years. Yeah.
Technically, I've been training with Daniel for like 1 year now, right?
Yeah.
So it's been 1 year of me getting submitted and me getting choked out. Obviously, the size difference, the weight differences.
Yeah, blame it on
You have to blame it on something, right? So let's talk more about obviously neither of us is Thai. So how did you end up in Thailand, right?
Yeah, so I initially moved to Thailand in 2014, early teens. So I came to Thailand to study. So when I finished high school, my parents were looking for ways. I'm originally from Nigeria, so my parents were looking to get me to study abroad, and they reached out to their contact at that point, and I had two offers then, a university in Finland and one in Thailand. I chose the one in Thailand because the weather, the food, the quality of life, it was just a bit easier to integrate into Thailand than having to study Finnish for 1 year and then deal with the cold in Finland. So I picked Thailand, and I wouldn't say it's been a bad decision so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting because so I also grew up in, let's say, the African continent, right? So I finished my high school and I spent almost close to a decade in Ethiopia. And as I know that most people, when we come from that part of the world, given the choice between moving to Asia or Europe or US, most people will pick Europe or US.
Yeah.
But you still chose Thailand. So
I chose Thailand. And I did that because of, number one is actually it's more cost effective, and it was you get good quality, more bang for buck if you have to put it that way. And so you get good quality, the weather. People say it's hot, but I rather choose the heat over the freezing cold.
For sure.
That's just my opinion. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Actually, I agree with the cost-effective part, right? Because when I was in Ethiopia and I finished high school, I had the same kind of decision to make, where to go for university, and I ended up choosing China. But it was mainly because of the same reason, because it's just more affordable.
Right.
I could see myself working in China while paying for a university in China.
Exactly.
I mean, the legality of it is
right.
but it's still, it's possible back then.
And the thing that I have to say is especially if you are, let's say, working in Africa and trying to support someone else in that continent, you also want a good exchange rate. You get what I mean? Because it was good initially, so maybe 1 to 5 when I first came, but then the economy of my country got hit badly. There was a petroleum crisis at that point, and then it went from the exchange rate of 1 to 5 to 1 to 12. So in my second year, I started to deal with more financial issues, because then my parents would not be able to support me as much. So you're sending the same amount of money, but now it's half.
Okay.
because
the exchange rate is,
so that's also, you have to take that into account.
I'm curious, when you can, is your path in a sense similar to mine or not? Because when I went from Ethiopia to China, it was less of a journey and more of just a escape kind of a thing, I didn't have the money or the plan or anything. So what happened is that I just did I finished high school and then I didn't go to university. I worked a year with my dad, collected the money.
Similar.
And didn't even collect the money for next 4 years or so. I just collected just enough to pay for one semester and 3 months in China. And then I just went and I was like, okay, we'll see what
What
happens.
happens?
What happens?
Literally, this is very similar. I always make this analogy when I speak to my parents. Like, you sent a man to the moon with limited oxygen supply.
Yeah. There was
And it's
yeah.
like, find oxygen on the moon
Over there, yeah.
or die.
Die,
You know, kind of, it was, yeah, do or die kind of thing. Similar. I finished high school and I took one gap year and I taught mathematics in just middle school and taught my own private classes. Gathered some funds. My parents raised as much money as they could, even prior to that. As I said, enough to get the plane ticket, get the initial, feeding for a few months and pay the initial school fees. After that, actually, I paid my remaining school fees. A year after graduation, I had to pay all my student debt.
Shit. What is it about this? I don't know why. Like always, it always has to be like this.
Yeah.
I feel like coming from like developing countries,
Yeah.
it's like it takes so much effort just to get to the starting line.
Yes. That's it.
Yeah. And you're so tired when you get to the starting line.
Right.
But then it's like now the race actually starts. Like
literally, I cannot even be. I agree with you 100% because I make this analogy all the time when I speak to my friends from other countries that are more fortunate. And again, it's just where you're born. So sometimes you feel like this is ground zero, but you're starting from like the basement. You have to dig yourself out of a pit to then even begin to compete with your peers. Yeah. So I kudos to everyone that has had to go through that kind of journey, and you'll be surprised how many people have actually have to do that. But it's kind of part of life, and as you said, specifically when you're coming from a developing country.
Yeah, because so many people I know have to go through this, and it's like I noticed this in energy levels, right? Like I'm 27 now, but at work I feel like I'm more tired than people who are actually 27 my age. Because then I start to compare when I ask them, when did you get your first real job? I'm not talking about like the summers you worked in high school. I'm talking like a job where you had the stress of paying bills and like really making ends meet.
Yeah.
When was the first time? And usually their answer is like 22, 23.
Yeah.
So technically they have been in the field 3-4 years.
Yeah.
They have a lot of energy. So I had this energy at 17.
Right.
So technically I have been in the field for 10 years.
Indeed. Interesting. My first job was at 13, carrying blocks.
Yeah.
So yeah, that gives you an example. I did that job for like a week and I promised myself to do everything in my power to make sure I can use my brain to earn money and not my physicality. Because I spent most of the money I made like taking painkillers because of how strenuous the work was. So I was like, okay, like dude, like you're not gonna get like any decent amount of money like by working like physical menial labor, by how much weight or block or stuff you can carry. So it became quite clear to me I need to take my study very seriously. So I thanked my parents for making me work at that age. It was actually a test. They were like, oh, okay, you keep asking for money. Do you know how hard it is to make money? Try and make money on your own. I was like, okay, I will prove you wrong. And boy, was I wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I came to a similar conclusion that I need to use my brain for sure.
Yeah.
But it came to a point where like once let's say now that I started making decent money,
right,
I realized when I look back at all of my dreams that I had before of the type of like career I wanted to pursue, it was never in something that was like scientific or like we are both engineers. I didn't introduce myself because you guys should know that I'm an engineer. Otherwise it's weird, But I feel like since I was a kid, all of my goals were more like, okay, football player, actor, athletics, something like that. But I think it's different. Like, let's say a BJJ athlete who owns a gym is a very different kind of activity than a construction worker.
100%.
Even though they're both like you're using physicality.
Yeah, I mean, you can see there's a huge difference when it comes to BJJ though, because there's a very important intellectual element that people actually don't realize, or a part of it where it still involves a considerable amount of being able to problem solve.
Yes.
So jiu-jitsu, rolling around is like a puzzle.
Yes.
When it comes to just being a drone, I call it a drone, just pick the block from here, put it there.
Robotic.
It's a lot robotic, right? It's
Yes.
quite different than, there's also levels to this, right? There is an actual person that needs to like craft and follow a certain structure. And then there's just like pure drone labor, where your job is just pick this up and put it there, pick this up and put it there. That's thoughtless pretty much. So yeah, I feel like, as you mentioned with the BJJ athletes, there's also a level of mental stimulation that comes with that work. Like a pure dumb individual will not be able to do that.
Fair enough.
It will be a bit harder to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
And if you think of jiu-jitsu, a lot of people at the top, we talk about some level of autism. What is autism in this regard is ability to zone in and focus on something, and actually that focus and the time that comes with putting focus to a long period of time creates a level of expertise, skill development, right? Yeah, and that doesn't just come easily.
Yeah. Fair enough. I feel like even with BJJ, right? One other thing I noticed is like, if you're a very high level BJJ player, you might have autism, but it's easy to communicate with autistic people.
Right.
Sure, you cannot communicate with them about a lot of things, but the thing they are interested in, you can.
Yeah.
Compared to like, let's say, other combat sports, because I have friends who did boxing professionally and some level of kickboxing as well. And the older they get, to the ages we are now, 27, 28, they cannot string two sentences together. Things are just falling off,
Yeah.
So I feel like we can go close to 100% in sparring on daily basis and still be fine to some extent. Compared to like, okay, if you go 100% in boxing every day, then it's long.
It's not a thing. I think it was so one of the MMA fighters, he mentioned that if you actually want to have a career in MMA, for example, most people that do well, you don't go in every day and spar like you want to take someone's head off. So oftentimes some people even do like very little intense, like grueling, knock you out kind of training until like very close to competition. So you need that for longevity. And piggyback of what you said, it makes sense that people will get hit in the head, day in, day out for long periods of times. Will find it hard to string together, a sentence. So that's one of the differences with BJJ. We try to break each other's limbs and choke each other out, but oftentimes you're not taking a knee to the head if it can be avoided. It does happen.
It happens quite often. Recently, it's happening quite often, but
So, but it's not a given per se. And some boxing gyms actually do acknowledge that and kind of implement a more like body shot kind of sparring versus like head hunting. So even I think there are some considerations being taken in more training going down the line in boxing even. So yeah, makes sense that moral of the story, if it's possible, avoid getting hit in the head. That's
for sure. Yeah, I don't know why I saw this video of John Jones a while back, and I agree with it so much. When I was in university, I did boxing a while, right? And when I came to Thailand, I did Muay Thai as well for short periods of time. And I remember if somebody used to hit me in the head, I used to get like quite angry, like, because why did you do this? We are not fighting. Like a small touch or something is fine. You can do body shots, but like, why you hitting like at 70, 80% to my head? It makes no sense. But then I see people at the gym who are like smiling. Like they will get like, their jaws will get rocked, and then they will smile like, it's so much fun. Let's do it again. I think that's crazy. You're just like speeding your way to Alzheimer's or something like that. That's crazy, I think.
Understood. Yeah, that does make sense. I think when it comes to, again, like if from the point of self-defense, I feel everyone, if you're actually really serious about self-defense, you need to understand what it feels like to get hit in the head and what to do when that happens. Because I can tell you from someone that my first martial art was actually boxing. I trained boxing for not a long time, a few weeks actually, and went right into boxing fights. under CFC promotion.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, amateur fight. I lost obviously, but
Yeah.
yeah, I did
But
it
you
quick.
know, you know how it feels to
Exactly.
get.
So the first time I remember sparring with a guy, Colenius, very good. He has a very good stance, like good switching, and
Mm.
did hit on, and he just hit me, and that was the first time I felt like my brain rattle, and everything in your, like, any plan you think you had just goes out the window. So it's like
You just
something
start swinging.
exactly. It's like it's something you need to, if you actually really believe in self-defense and you want to be able to truly defend yourself in a real world situation, you need to know, like, okay, my brain is rattled. How can I readjust from this, from this situation going out? Else, that is enough alone to just snuff out your spirit, literally.
Mhm.
Like the first time you get hit in the head, if you do not have a plan, or no one has a plan, but if you do not know how this feels, and
Mhm.
okay, how do you continue onwards, that's actually enough to shut you down and just nullify, make you cower pretty much, and just give up mentally, even if you can still fight physically. Yeah.
This one is interesting because so since you did boxing, right? I want to ask if you had the same experience.
Yeah.
When I started first sparring, so I started sparring with a friend of mine who is doing, I think he's like semi-pro now in Indonesia, and he was training me. And I remember the first time he punched me,
Right.
I felt like my brain is shaking inside the skull, you know? Like I literally felt like something just went out and then came back in, like a rubber ball or something.
Exactly.
Like
Your brain gets rattled. Literally, that's
it
it.
was
Yeah.
crazy feeling. I couldn't believe like this is like a. And then I sparred with another friend of ours, a Russian guy, and he has like a really crazy heavy bone density, right?
Yeah.
And at this point now I'm already scared because
Right.
I already got hit once. I know how it feels. I know the guy I'm now sparring is crazier than the previous one
Yeah.
and heavier. So I know it's not gonna be good. And then we start sparring. Okay. And then this guy swings at full power. And I move back and I just felt, the wind from his glove touch my
Right.
face. And I immediately look at my friend like, we need to stop this. You need to tell him to stop right now because I cannot do this for 3 more minutes.
Right.
Because just by the wind, I knew if this connected, I would be knocked out.
Right.
I would be gone. So yeah.
It is like that. That's, it's, I think that fear also of not getting hit, or that plays a role. Like, example, if this is a self-defense situation,
Yeah.
you need to also know how to deal with that, right? So some people, they just, one of the things you learn in boxing is, like, oftentimes when a punch is coming at you, your immediate intent is to flinch and cover up,
Yeah.
and you need to basically rewire your brain to keep your eyes open to see where the punch is coming from.
Yeah.
So that takes a while actually to be able to overcome those natural fight or flight. Actually, it's a flight reflex, so you cover. So yeah, it takes a bit more effort to actually
Even the
overcome
flight
that.
reflex is not that good, because I started doing Muay Thai again recently, like on the Saturdays sometimes. And Baki is our Muay Thai coach at Pom Gym. Maybe we'll put his Instagram somewhere here, like, and then so this guy had to rewire my reflexes again because when we started sparring, whenever he punches, I started moving back. And I had to rewire it to actually, when I see the punch coming, I need to move forward, not
to an angle.
Yeah, exactly. And that was so difficult. That was so difficult to do.
Indeed. Yeah, I think that's the thing that comes with most martial arts in general. It's all about rewiring and learning a better way to be safer because oftentimes, sometimes your natural reaction is detrimental to your own well-being.
It's not even fight or flight. It's like somewhere in the middle, hanging like fight, flight, fight.
Exact paralysis, literally. At some point, it's like information overload. And you're just stuck in your
stuck in
tracks.
the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
So you said like your first martial art was boxing, right?
Yeah.
My first one was taekwondo. But so how you found BJJ. How did you come upon it?
Right. So I have to give a shout out to Nick. So some people know as Lee. Yeah.
Okay,
So
we'll put
he.
his
Yeah.
QRS thing actually because he likes
Exactly.
that, right? So QRS,
Exactly.
Kaoye, and stuff. Yeah.
Actually, how did I get into boxing? Lee also. I
Okay.
was in a bar and I just literally right
Really?
and I met Lee there and we just
Really? Just randomly at a bar?
randomly.
What the heck?
Yeah, I can't even remember what bar.
Okay.
But yeah, I met him. And we talked, and it was like, oh, like he told me, okay, yeah, he was a professional MMA fighter at some point, and he told me, yeah, actually, you know, I do. If you, I was telling him I'm actually interested in martial arts, and he said, yeah, actually, I can arrange that. I was like, okay. So he was my first boxing coach.
Damn.
Yes,
Wow.
indeed.
Okay, tell me more. Now I'm curious. Okay.
Yeah.
Go.
He was my first boxing coach, and then I was training together with him and Toby.
Okay.
So Toby was my sparring partner.
Okay.
And Toby is very fast,
Yeah.
right? But there's a weight class difference, and now I know why.
Yeah.
After I sparred with Toby, I could kind of survive, but when I went up against a guy that's slightly heavier and more muscular than me, and I got hit, I was like, okay, I didn't prepare for this. So that's why there's a weight class in boxing for a very clear reason. When you add the momentum and the force that can be generated given a moving body mass, it's a very clear reason why there's a weight class. So back to how I got into boxing through Lee, on Nick.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was my first boxing coach, and then after we did finish the fight, I also got in some rounds with Colenius. Colenius also was very good Muay Thai, and also has good boxing knowledge. So I would go to his place. I would call it far out in the bayous, and would just be at the backyard somewhere, just doing boxing drills, running sprints, and then
Interesting. Just the Wild West. There was no gym. There was no nothing. Just like hunting people down and just training with them. What the heck?
Yeah, that was it. Because why did I even get into martial arts in the first place? Is the true question, right? Because why did I start seeking out boxing?
Yeah. Okay.
At that point, I had worked for a few years, and this was during the height of COVID, towards like the end of COVID, like 2022. So this segues back into what we've talked about, how when we are coming from developing countries, right? We have this kind of drive to succeed, and we're kind of running away oftentimes from something.
Yeah.
And oftentimes our motivations are not ours. It's more like you're running from hunger.
Yes.
Or you
just want to prove something.
Want to prove something, literally. But what happened to me was I had gotten to a point in my life where I wasn't worried about what I was going to eat next. I could eat what I wanted to eat. My work was stable. Like I no longer had any beer, or any kind of inherent threat chasing me to do stuff, and I just found myself becoming lazy. Right? I was no longer going to the gym as much as I would like. I was began to gain weight. Actually, when I got into boxing was when I was at the peak of my weight gain.
Damn, how much was that?
When I came to Thailand initially, I came in at 55 kg, 59 to be accurate. Damn. 59. I was scrawny, okay? And by the time I started training boxing, I was 89.
Wow. Okay, that's damn. Wow.
Right. I trained boxing for a few weeks. Came down with COVID, couldn't train as much, and then after I recovered from COVID, I had to fight in a week. After recovering COVID, and my breathing, everything was off. But that experience forced me to train, and I went from like 89 kg back down to like 84 to compete. So I competed actually weighing around 83, 84. So that lit a fire back in me to, still get after it. So that was what happened. Like I had come to the point where that I didn't have any inherent thing to kind of work towards, and there was no immediate crisis that I had to avert. So I kind of had to seek out discomfort, and that came in the form of boxing and then jiu-jitsu after that.
So why the switch from boxing to jiu-jitsu?
Right. So after I did boxing, it became quite clear to me that this is not something I'm going to be able to do long term and I have longevity in. Because I would sometimes come into the office with a black eye or,
Jesus.
like
Yeah,
a
yeah,
cut
yeah.
on my face,
Yeah.
and I had to be presentable.
Mm.
You can't look like coming from Fight Club.
Yeah. Fight Club.
Yeah. So
Mm.
actually, we called our little dojo the 21 Fight Club.
Okay. Wow. Damn.
Yeah, so that's kind of what it was. That switch when I did BJJ also on the Nick, and with Toby and the guys, Corey, like we just got together up in Toby's, attic almost. Yeah, so we had a little small dojo, and we just got together, every other
Oh, so
evening, and we trained
this
there.
means that Coach Yong came into the picture much, much after that.
Not a lot, not too long, like maybe 3 months after I started my martial arts journey.
Ah, okay,
Right.
damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was a very interesting story.
Okay.
So after I had trained with Nick for a while, I thought like, okay, I kind of begin to get a hang of this.
Mm.
I initially started, I was power building at that point. So I was also training like a lot of strength training, like trying to get my numbers up in the bench, squat, deadlift. So I had broken all my records at that point. I was like, okay, I'm pretty strong now. And then I started jiu-jitsu. With boxing, when I did boxing with Toby, I could kind of hold my own. But when I started doing jiu-jitsu with Toby, the dude was just choking me out. Okay.
Okay. Bet.
And I was like, how? Like, what is happening here? Like, okay, that already turned me, okay, like this is even more when you're a lot more up close and someone that you feel like you're physically stronger, it's still able to get an advantage on you. Okay, this is interesting.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
So that began to pique my interest. Okay, I need to go deeper into this art. Yeah, you could literally just pass out. It takes a lot to knock someone out.
Yeah.
But to choke them out,
Not that much.
not that much. A girl could choke you out if she has a puppet choke on you. Even a smaller human being, much smaller, half your size can, if they can get on your back. Yeah. So there's a lot more. I feel like there was more advantage to be gained when it came to the aspect of self-defense. Yeah. So at that point, I felt like, okay, I had some boxing experience. I kind of knew I could take a punch. But now I still couldn't feel like I could defend myself.
I see.
Right. The why I decided to train further with Coach Young at Pump Gym was I came with Nick once and dropped by the dojo. It's like, oh yeah, that's my friend actually opened the gym. The gym was just new at that point. So, okay, let's drop by there. I dropped by and I met a guy, a teenager at that point. His name was he was 15 or 16. Like his name is Ben. And I rolled with him. I thought, okay, maybe I can still hold my own. He submitted me 3 times in 5 minutes.
Okay.
And I was just shook. I was like, a grown man shouldn't be getting submitted by
A
kids.
16-year-old. Yeah.
This is not right. So I was like, okay, he definitely knows. He's learning from someone, and he knows something I don't know. So that was okay. Nick was beginning to close down his own, little training that we had. So okay, I transferred. I started training with Young. And I never looked back after that.
Yeah. After that,
this
it's
style was just so suited to my game, to my style.
Yeah. Then it has just been like medals galore after that, right?
It's been all the way up since.
All the way up. Okay, cool. Wow, I didn't know that you met Nick or your. So basically, you seeked out martial arts because you were getting lazy. You were getting too comfortable. Something like this. Interesting. I myself got into martial arts because I was just a shitty student. And I was just always making problems for my mom at home.
Yeah.
She was getting calls from the school non-stop. Like I'm talking like grade 1 through 5. I was getting into fights every day with teachers, with the students. Always there was a call home, come pick him up, suspension, stuff like that. And then someone recommended like, okay, get him into martial arts. They will beat this shit out of him over there. And then sports kind of became like a hobby, like just a part of life thing for me, because I never went from like finish school and then go home directly. You know, like most kids do, like
Just
finish
go
a school,
to play. Yeah.
go home or
Yeah.
go out with your friends. For me, high school, middle school, university, it was always like finish school, sports, then go home.
Right.
And then what sport I'm doing changed
Over time.
based on like location and what you have access to. Like when I was in Pakistan, it was taekwondo.
Yeah.
But then when we moved to Ethiopia, I didn't find enough like combat oriented gyms or something, and they were also very pricey. And I got super into football, so it was just football for me. And then in university, I remember. So this was I was working as promoter and stuff like that, and I saw like people get drunk at
Wow.
night and crazy fights starts happening, and like like football is not gonna help me win a fight like
Right.
so
Yeah.
I got into boxing mostly, I could say, like to stroke my own ego, like
Right.
yeah, I know how to fight or something
see.
like this, yeah. But then and then I came to Thailand, and my focus was mostly like, okay, I will just focus on engineering. I will just focus on training my brain.
Right.
But then I started gaining weight a lot.
Right.
And even this was because it was so stupid on my end. I thought like the meal I'm having is actually very healthy.
Healthy. Yeah.
But it was not. Because what I was having was, for dinner especially, right? A full bowl of fried rice, a full bowl of Penang.
Wow. That's a very high
That's usually for like
yeah.
2-3 people or something.
Yeah.
All for me, every night for almost 3 months. And I was like, why do I keep gaining weight? I'm just eating like rice and chicken. Rice and chicken is healthy.
Yeah.
But no, it was. And then I'm not gonna mention the place, right? Because there can be some issues for this. But like I was training Muay Thai at this one place, and and then so my trainer was like 8 years, something like this. Been doing Muay Thai, professional fighter, and then he had an MMA match with a blue belt, a guy who has been doing jiu-jitsu like 3 years and has almost no striking experience. And I went to see that match, and I was like, wow, my coach is gonna win, right? Like this previous coach at the previous gym, because he knows Muay Thai 10 years, and he's doing it professionally. He's a professional fighter. And the fight started, and this blue belt guy is just like holding punches, holding, boom, blast double, teleported to the back, choke out, and he wins. And I was like, so 10 years of Muay Thai will get me this, getting choked out later. So I need to figure out what this thing is. And this is like post Khabib and Conor McGregor's fight,
Right.
So grappling is famous, because I remember just pre-Conor fight, grappling was still famous, but not as famous. After people saw how Khabib dominated Conor, at least in like this part of the world,
Right.
say Muslim part of the Asia and stuff, grappling, I feel like, gained more popularity because people are like, what is this thing that they're doing?
Right.
It's like confusing, it's like wrestling, but like not the fancy outfits. So like what's going on over here?
Like the Gracies in the UFC. Now
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu,
Now jiu-jitsu, right? So it was like curious. And then I started looking for gyms in Thailand, and then Pom Gym was the only one where I saw like most pictures back then were like people wearing medals. And I was like, the fuck? So many gyms have pictures without medals. These guys send like 4 guys, and then all 4 of them are wearing medals. They are doing something. I need to find out what they're doing. So then I came to class. Actually, that one was also funny, the conversation with coach, right? So I came to Pom Gym, I think 2 or 3 months after it opened, actually. But the day I came, it was closed and no one there, and the gym is closed. And I see inside, and all I see is just this big white mat with some like half the boxing shit there. I'm like, is this really the place where they teach? And like nothing around it, it's closed or what? And I called the owner, and the number wasn't working, and I was like, what's going on? And then again, I saw some pictures being posted, so I was like, bet they are training. But now it's already been like 4 months break because I joined another gym.
Right.
And then I called him again. This time he picked up. And I'm expecting it would be a Thai guy because I can hear a very Asian English accent, right?
Yeah.
So I gave the phone to my girlfriend and I told her like, hey, it's a Thai guy. Talk to him in Thai. And she's telling me he's speaking English. It's like, why is he speaking English? Tell him to speak Thai because so we can, because I wanted him to know I'm a total beginner. I don't know anything about grappling. So I want to come to a class where there are no like experienced people. I want to know the basics. And she's like, yeah, but I'm trying to say this in Thai, but he's speaking English. I was like, okay, give it to me. When she gave me the phone, I think during this time, coach gave the phone to a Thai person saying like, this person is speaking Thai, please. Now when I started speaking English, the other person is speaking Thai. And I'm confused. I'm like, what's wrong with this person? What are they doing? But anyways, finally, after like a long 2-3 weeks of like randomly calling, we got on the same page. I went to the gym and I meet this guy and he tells me he's Korean. And I'm like, okay.
Now it makes sense.
Now it makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, but luckily nobody else came to that class. It was just me and coach. And then Spencer came. Wow. And it was his first class as well that day.
Yeah.
So there were no problems. And then, yeah, after that, BJJ has just been, although now I feel like I'm developing, that's why I started doing Muay Thai a little bit more, because now I feel like I'm developing some bad habits.
Right.
That I'm forgetting how to like deal with punches, you know.
Right.
And if I get like originally when I came to do BJJ was for self-defense, and I feel like if I get into a fight on the street or something, I would just be super confused what happens when someone throws a punch at me.
One of the things I recommend if you've done boxing in the past and you still want to keep it as part of your arsenal, right? One of the ways I warm up when I actually do jiu-jitsu is by shadow boxing.
So that's what.
So people who see me shadow boxing is like, it's a jiu-jitsu match.
Yeah, the fuck. What you doing?
It's just a way to warm up, but it also allows you to, like, I will wake up in the morning some days and I will just shadow box, you know, and it's like, it just reminds you that, okay, you know, you step a certain way, you step with your punch. You know, you duck your head this way. You know, this is your jab. This is your hook. This is your slip. Yeah.
Yeah, there is so much technique that goes into striking as well. Like we might not think about it. Like,
dude, it's very technical.
But it's so technical.
Very technical.
Yeah.
Like it's you cannot even exhaust the technicality of it. It's, you know, when you see, you know, like I grew up watching boxing on the television, and you'd see like, oh, this guy got knocked out.
Yes.
And you just think, okay, you just go and hit someone. No, it's not that simple. That's a whole mechanics of like even leg placement.
Yes.
Inside, outside position, you know, in the pocket, out the pocket, long range, distance. Like, dude, it's crazy. You have an out fighter, you have a brawler, right? And you have those that just stay outside the range and just pick you out with a jab.
Yeah. Adesanya
keep the distance, right? Just snipers. And you have those that want to get in up close and personal and really
in your face kind of a thing, right?
It's the styles, and they always say like styles make matches.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
So there's a reason behind that. There's an inherent lot of technicality. I also recently noticed the same in wrestling. So we can get into that later. But I just thought people just double blast and that was it.
That's the wrestling, right?
That's a whole technical element to it. Shout out to the guys been helping me out with wrestling.
For me, that would be him actually. So shout out to him.
For me, it's Malachi. Shout out
to Malachi then. So no, for me, wrestling, like anything that has to do with grappling, I always thought like, oh, there is technique to it. But for striking, because we naturally know on some level how to, I'm not saying we know how to throw a punch, but like how to hit with your hand, you know, like it makes sense, how to do something with this. But on the ground, I was like, that's so lost, you know, that's not a natural position to be in. But when I actually started doing Muay Thai, I was like, damn, there is like a lot of technique over here that's going on. Well, I did sparring with like Benny a few days ago, and I had forgotten everything, you know. I couldn't stand up straight. I was just standing like this, taking punches, and he cornered me, and there was no place for me to go, and I didn't know what to do. Back in college, my reflex would have been to, like duck under, take an angle, and then like start hitting him back.
Right.
But now I was just like, no, okay, and I just went, grab his waist, and then like sweep his legs, and Baki was like, "This is not BJJ. This is a foul."
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So, but then coming back more to BJJ, right? So, what type of BJJ do you like? Like, what's your style? Because there is like, I'm just a white belt, so I don't even know many styles, but there is like step passing, there is pressure, there is dynamic, hybrid.
Yeah, exactly. Like my style is tailored to my coach.
Yes.
So the first style I learned, well, that actually worked was pressure passing. And I've gone on to like incorporate some dynamic element to it because I have some explosive tendencies.
Yes.
So sometimes I do like to indulge myself.
Yes.
So I also have to kind of understand a bit of some level of dynamic passing. But if my go-to game is pressure passing, I don't have to think about it. It just comes. And that's what I go to when I'm in competition mode and I'm also looking to conserve as much energy. It's more suited. Yeah.
What, for people who don't know, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is pressure passing? Like, how is it different from all
Right.
this? Because these days, when you watch a jiu-jitsu match with the rise of B team and
Right.
everything, we see step guard passing, right? And people think like when they hear the word pressure passing, this is the common misconception, right? That step guard passing is not tiring. They think it's easy because you're just moving your legs, so you pass the guard without actually being tired.
Yeah.
Whereas pressure passing
It's also,
is tiring and slow.
right.
So what do you think
Yeah,
about
like so pressure, I think it all, like I say, again, styles make a match. And pressure passing, the very first time you do it is exhausting.
that? Yes.
But once you build up tolerance to how you're supposed to breathe and how you're supposed to move, you find out that actually you can last longer doing a pressure pass than if you try to then do a step pass. So to answer your question, the key elements of a pressure passing is there is space between you and your opponent, and your goal is to eliminate that space completely. Right? So your goal is to remove slowly and systematically, gain contact surface or contact, surface. Like you need to gain more contact, surface contact with your opponent, and gradually increase that contact, that surface.
Yeah, that's a
Right.
coach word, right?
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
you don't even know what to say because your coach always says contact surface, so you just went with contact surface.
But it is
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
There's the surface and
Yeah.
there's the contact.
Contact, and it's
And your goal is to just maximize that contact. As you maximize that contact, it's like a boa constrictor kind of thing where you slowly remove every space and like break down your opponent. Yeah.
And so you have tried both, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say is the benefit of this type of style over step, let's say?
Right. So when it comes to pressure passing, the one thing that I find that it does is that it tires your opponent out. There's also a mental component to it. When someone is trying to get away from you and they're just like, what is happening? Why am I stuck here? There's the whole like, what's going on? And as they fight to resist that from happening, they exhaust themselves faster than you will. And that means that when you then get to submission, you have a much tired individual that finds it harder to defend your submissions. It also makes the game compact in such a way that it's hard for them to just easily explode or wiggle out when it comes to pressure passing. It's a slow game. So the advantage is that I feel it tires your opponent a bit faster than step passing, and it can also lead to submission in a longer time period than with step guard passing. Step guard passing, on the other hand, has its advantages.
For sure.
If you're looking to win a match very quickly, I think step guard passing can be the option. where you are able to quickly pass into your opponent's guard and then go for a flying armbar, or it's more dynamic, and you can score. I believe you can score faster if you're very good at it.
Yes.
But also you need to be someone that is very nimble and likes to step.
Yeah, for
says,
sure.
right?
Yes.
Pressure, on the other hand, like I said, I had a lot of training when it comes to powerlifting. I like to hold and I like to just squeeze.
Yeah.
I'm not in the business of like hopping around.
Yeah.
I want to reduce the amount of movement, and then I want to bring my strength into play, and that it's a lot more easier to do when you pressure pass than when you step pass.
For me, one of the key like selling points of pressure passing is that it's very risk averse. Like you don't get, it's really hard to get injured while sparring even close to 100% in pressure passing.
Right.
Because everyone is trying to move as slow as possible.
Yeah.
Because we want to inflict as much pressure as possible.
Yeah.
So like that's I think one of the most key elements, because in step guard passing especially, I don't know at high level for sure, probably not, but in the beginning, your knee and your ankles are gonna get wrecked depending on the, like if it's two white belts, spazzy ones especially, going at it.
And the guy on the ground, get ready for like a lot of knee to the head,
situations. Knee to the ear, knee to the balls, everywhere. Every time guard pass, it's long.
Yeah.
So for pressure, right? When you start your game, which position do you prefer? Do you like to start from top and inflict pressure, or do you start from bottom, like guard or whatever, and then start the pressure game slowly by going on top? Because as you started in like when I saw in the beginning your matches, you were mostly going top.
Exactly.
But recently, even in your last ADCC run, you have been starting from bottom. So which one do you prefer?
That's a very good question. I prefer top game, but it's grappling for a reason. And when you see ADCC, for example, it's oftentimes it's not just the jiu-jitsu guys. You have wrestlers there too.
Yes.
So you need to know what to do when you have to be, when you're on your back. You're not always going to be the guy with the better stand-up game. But if you know what to do when you do end up on your back, then you have options. So if you're up to me, if I do start my game, I prefer top. But I've been, as you mentioned, training more guard, because I find guard to be extremely useful and efficient when you're trying to get to top.
Okay.
Yeah. So and this is because of my body type. Jiu-jitsu also has to do with a lot of body types, right?
Yes.
So naturally, I'm more kind of stocky kind of build, right? And I find that playing guard, close guard, like half guard. I have a butterfly guard and half guard game. But when you play guard, there's a level of dexterity and kind of flexibility you also need to be a very good guard player. Versus top is hawk smash mode.
Okay.
You can just put down that pressure and crush, right? Guard, on the other hand,
more technical.
It's more technical, actually. Really. Top is technical, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, sure.
Because you need to know, if you don't know what you're doing, But to actually survive a good top player, a guard player, on the other hand, has to be a lot more technical and know how to, deal with space management, deal with guard recovery, make space when you need to make space, kill the space, kill the distance when you need to do that. You need very good joint dexterity and flexibility. Else, some people play rubber guard, for example, like, dude, like if I did that, my knee would just pop out. So this is an example. Or even like very good close guarders, you really have to have good dexterity, good joint flexibility. So starting out, I was actually stiff. Now that I play more guard, it's beginning to introduce me to more longevity, like doing yoga and doing like more stretching. You actually quite begin to find it's not just about strength. If you want to do this long enough, you also need flexibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you play guard,
Yeah.
so do you play guard to actually submit from guard, or do you play guard to just go on top again?
My first option when I play guard is to go on top,
Okay.
right? Because
enough.
then if this is in a competition setting, unless it's a
Yes.
sub-only match,
Yes.
if it's in a competition setting,
Point picking.
I play to win. Like,
Yes.
and to win, I need to have more points.
Yes.
The submission is secondary.
Okay.
If I do get a good position to submit, I go for it. But when I started learning jiu-jitsu with my coach, the first thing you learn is position over submission. And also when it comes to self-defense, I believe you need to be able to hold your opponent down in a certain position.
Yes.
Keep them where you want to keep them. So I think being able to understand position is inherently very important. And then the submission can always come after, unless you plan to complete sub only and then just have your going artistically on your one leg submission.
Bottom side control submission.
Yeah, rubber guard. I don't know, whatever you want to do. Bogey chokes maybe.
Okay, then. Well, actually, my thing is very similar because we learn under the same coach, so our games are also very similar. It's half guard. I don't even have butterfly guard. We just learned some things today, right? And then I'm just learning few techniques, but most of them are still sweeps from butterfly guard. So because half guard, that's my game.
Yeah.
But I usually just do it for dogfight to taking top.
Exactly.
Just very recently, I started adding the option of like actually taking the back from half guard,
right?
Which I didn't even know is actually an option but I realized like one of the issues with half guard is like, or at least what I face is like, it's extremely exhausting, one, and for two, it's not that convenient against really heavy people. For really heavy people, I feel like butterfly guard does wonders because you can just like, usually their weight is not equally distributed.
Right.
So when you have butterfly hooks, there is always this sense that the more forward you move, the more imbalance you can get. And like someone is trying to grab your head while parting your knees. It's like a very weird position to be in.
Right.
So
yeah, that's true. My first guard also I learned was half guard.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the, it's probably the best guard to begin with as a beginner. Because then you start to understand like positioning. How do you get your hips out?
Yes.
How do you control space? Because you have to get your head from extension to, you know, a much closer to your opponent's knee to avoid getting cross-faced to infinity.
Yes.
Avoid pressure. So, but then, as you mentioned, it's very exhausting. The goal of half guard is not to stay in half guard.
Yes. This is literally what I learned. Like I was reminded 4 days ago in a class because I was just like holding the person and it's staying, and I was like, "Dude, what you doing? You're supposed to be." Yeah, it brings up a very interesting point, right? People think guard is a passive position.
No.
Actually, no. Guard is a very active position. You need to be attacking in guard, but people feel like because it kind of looks like you're laying down,
biding time, right?
You just literally lay down and you just rest there or something like that. But since we are on the topic of guard, I have to ask this very specific question.
Okay.
Wrestle or full guard?
This
needs to be asked.
I'm actually very agnostic to this question because I think it depends on the goal, right? So you always have this banter of like, oh, you know, God pullers are gay or something. The question is, what is the goal? What is the objective, right?
Yes.
If it's a jiu-jitsu fight, right? And the goal is to win a jiu-jitsu medal, okay? Then you don't have to wrestle.
You do what you gotta do, right?
What you need to do. But in terms of personal style, right? I, you know, would wrestle. I mix it up. So I mix it up. It depends at what I tailor my game based on what I feel my opponent is gonna do, right? So if I feel like I'm going up against someone that has a much better stand-up game than me, then it's pointless for me to play his game.
Ego stroking.
Exactly. So I feel like when it comes to life in general or anything, it's like to win, you have to bring your opponent to your game. And not get pulled into their own space, into their own, you know, game. So if I feel like I have an advantage by pulling guard, why not? I would exploit the advantage.
Yes.
I'm here to win.
Yeah, exactly. I find
Yeah.
it so weird, that people who have been doing wrestling or MMA or something for
Yeah.
like 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, whatever. It doesn't even need, it's not even about the length of time, it's what you practice. So
Right.
you practice, let's say, stand up and blasting doubles day after day for
Yeah.
8 hours a day. And I practice guard. But when we enter a jiu-jitsu match, which is just a grappling match, right? Like either or, it's up to you. You want me to come and play your game with you. No,
That's the point.
that's makes no sense. Like the thing is, I am in guard, right? If I catch your leg, I can bring you to my game.
Right.
So since you're standing, you should develop your own technique,
Right.
to
deal
bring
with
me,
my guard, right?
or like force me to stand up or something. Like
Right.
me sitting down and you standing is not my problem. If I'm sitting down, I will make you fall down. Like I will sweep you, I will try to leg lock you, whatever.
Yeah.
So just like that, me sitting down is not my problem. It's like
Right.
your problem. Like you deal with it now.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. So like when I find people like, literally bitching about it,
Yeah.
you're actually the pussy in this case because you're complaining.
Yeah.
So deal with it,
Deal with it.
But then in a different context, if you ask me, wrestle up or guard pull in a self-defense point of view,
Yes.
then I would say wrestling, because you don't want to be on the ground, out on the concrete,
Yeah.
in unknown environments. So that's different. So I would still suggest that if you do jiu-jitsu for self-defense, please learn how to wrestle.
Yes.
Or have some stand-up game in your arsenal, because that is one of the important tenets.
For sure.
Every alteration we start standing. Have some boxing, know what to do when you get hit. Have some kickboxing if possible, or Muay Thai, but know how to deal with a standing opponent, because that's the most self-defense scenario.
Sure. Then building on that,
Yeah.
for BJJ, right?
Yeah.
What do you think would be better for a stand-up, judo or wrestling, if somebody had to pick one?
Yeah, this is a very good one. And again, I'm agnostic.
Okay.
You could do both. But what I've found from my own personal experience, don't come for me, is that wrestling, if you can start young, I feel like wrestling does tend to callous the individual. There's a whole mindset that comes with wrestling.
Yes.
There's a mental aspect to it. A lot of wrestlers, they're not quitters, okay?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying judo guys are quitters. No, don't come at me, okay? But what I'm saying is that wrestling, when it comes for jiu-jitsu in particular, judo, when you throw your opponent, the back touches the mat, oftentimes ippon, that's the end, right? Wrestling, on the other hand, I feel like there's a lot more scrambling involved and fighting for position, which is a lot similar to BJJ than it is in judo.
Yes.
This would be my own personal opinion.
So what's the similarity between BJJ and then tech?
Right. So the similarity is the problem solving aspect of it. You have a puzzle in front of you. Okay, how do you transition out of this position? How do you get out of this bad position? How do you get a sweep? It's meant physical chess, if I must say. It's physical chess, and that physical aspect of it makes it even more endearing. It's like there's more at stake.
I see.
Right. If I do not solve this puzzle quite right, I could get smashed. If I do not get in this position, I can get choked out. I could get my limbs broken. So the high stakes elements of it, again, it's not like Russian roulette.
Yeah.
But I believe that coupled with your ability to problem solve, really makes you to appreciate the importance of your problem solving ability.
Yeah, that's why people I think from tech transition over so much.
Yeah.
Because in our gym alone, I think there is like, for example, me, you, Alex, who is also doing cybersecurity, and there is like one or two other people who told me they are in like tech roles, they like engineering or product adjacent type of roles. And I was like, wow, so many tech guys are transitioning over now to doing to BJJ. That's like
there's also an interesting part of this where it's like also the tech guys, jiu-jitsu, it's not exactly something that is cheap.
Yeah.
In some cases.
Okay.
So there's also the ability to have spare income to
Yes.
put to it.
Yes.
It's an expensive sport.
Yes.
Injury rehabs, gi,
Yeah.
attires,
Yes.
classes, sessions,
Yes.
private sessions if you need those. Yeah, so you also need to have dispensable cash.
For sure, for
so
sure.
that, yeah, exactly.
Cool. Okay. So what's next for you in terms of BJJ
Right.
and
So
like
initially
competitions
I
and
touched
stuff?
on so yeah, more competitions,
Mm.
which I find that the more you compete, the better your skill set.
Mm.
So you're forced to develop even faster
Mm.
because there is, no one likes to lose.
Yes,
And when you
sure.
make mistakes that cause you to lose, you actually go back and, fix those.
Mm.
So yeah, I do plan to compete more. A few more ADCCs this year. I
Mm.
believe there's one in Philippines and there's still a few around the world.
Mm.
And yeah, I keep training and get more competitions under my belt. Yeah.
So to build on that, you already took part in 4 ADCCs, right? Can you
Yes.
describe how was that in short a little bit that your experience and how
Yes.
is ADCC different from other?
So ADCC, what I love about ADCC is the way the time format is. Half of the match is, no points, and the other half is point based. So you can try elements of your game.
Mhm.
If you have a submission game, you can go out and give the position, and go out and chase the submission from the very get go without worrying about losing via points. Also, it gives you time to fill out your opponents and see, okay, what are they made of? And then when the points comes on, if you have a point game, you kind of have an idea, okay, how do I, what game do I put into play to be able to win against my opponent?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because ADCC doesn't have any points for first 3 minutes, right?
Yes, depending on how long the match is. Some matches could be 8 minutes, where the first 4 minutes. Now I compete in 8 minutes, or in some matches are 6 minutes. And then you also have even professionals where they're going like 10. Even I think that matches that could be 20 minutes, if I'm not mistaken.
I've seen some matches, I don't know if this is ADCC or not, but like on Flow that are like 45 minutes to 1 hour long.
Oh no, those are like more longer.
That's weird, right?
That's
How
not
can you be doing
ADCC.
BJJ for 1 hour non-stop?
I've seen matches that have no time limit until
Whenever.
yeah, until someone gets submitted. Just
So someone has to be submitted. There is no
Yes.
draw. You
There is
have
no
to
draw.
finish here.
Yes, just
That's crazy.
yeah.
cannot
there's
imagine.
no time limit matches too.
Yeah.
So for that, you need a different game. You need to be able to conserve energy.
That has
over a
to be
much
some
longer
weird,
period of time.
different world. I cannot even imagine.
It's
that type
possible.
of-
Like when I do compete for ADCC, I will spar with Gong, which is another pretty good. Congratulations to Gong and his blue belt.
So then we will tag his Instagram here as well. Okay.
And when I prepare for ADCC, I will spar with him for 20 plus minutes. And the goal is just to truly exhaust yourself and understand how to deal with exhaustion while you're sparring, and also understand energy conservation. How do you go hard but not hard enough that you can keep going?
Okay.
So there's an art to it also. Yeah, you
Okay.
need to also calibrate and understand your own body.
Right. But let's see. I will do my first ADCC next year. So let's see if I need to do this or well, my match will be just 5 minutes. So probably not. But yeah. Anyways, thanks for coming.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. That was the first episode. And yeah, if you like, then hit subscribe, comment, whatever. Let me know how we can improve this. Not about the setup. The setup is in progress, about the content. Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.